Spirit Airlines would still be here if Elizabeth Warren and the Biden administration and the Democrats didn't block the merger. This narrative is oversimplification and just intellectually lazy. You would have to ignore everything that I said in the video that this person left the comment on in order for this to be true. That is not how any of this works. First of all, Elizabeth Warren did not have the power to block this deal. Maybe she championed it, sure, but the merger was blocked by a federal judge, a judge that was appointed by Republican Ronald Reagan. The call's coming from inside the house. So all of this is being done in order to parrot a narrative that this collapse is solely because of Biden and the Democrats, and it's basically to avoid pointing the finger at the Cheeto Puff and the administration, who, by the way, is in office right now. None of this holds up. But more importantly, you're flattening an entire collapse into something that conveniently aligns with your own internal bias, and it's really dim and lazy. Spirit didn't suddenly become unstable when the merger was blocked, and we seem to be conveniently forgetting that JetBlue pulled out and didn't want to appeal the decision. And on top of that, it also ignores the literal rest of the picture, where Spirit was already in trouble from a myriad of bad business decisions. High debt, rising fuel costs, thin margins, a model that only works when conditions are perfect, and conditions were not perfect. The merger wasn't the sole problem. The merger was supposed to be a lifeline, and if your business needs a lifeline to survive, you're already beyond drowning. So that's the first part of this. And where the lack of critical thinking really shows, because we've seen this exact pattern before with Pan Am, the main point of what my extremely detailed video that this comment was about all of that in the first place. It was spelled out. Pan Am tried to fix their decline with a merger as well with national airlines, and instead of saving them, it further saddled them with more debt and accelerated the collapse. So this idea that a merger automatically saves an airline is a very rose-colored glasses, insanely optimistic and idealistic perspective to have. History has already disproved that. And in regards to the lifeline itself, JetBlue, over $1 billion in losses, billions in debt, actively restructuring to stay afloat, class action lawsuit, IT systems failure. What exactly is the long-term plan here? That's not a guaranteed rescue. That's shifting risk from one struggling airline to another. At best, it delays the outcome. At worst, it repeats the same cycle as we saw with Pan Am, and it takes down literally 2 airlines. While I do think the blocked merger is not trivial and contributed to the situation, to pin everything on just that is just untrue. It's lazy. It's not the sole reason that Spirit collapsed, and reducing an extremely complex financial failure into "see, it's the Dems" in order to avoid pointing any fingers at who's currently in office right now, and to avoid looking at the war happening amidst a declining economy. It's quite an interesting take in regards to all of this. And the last thing I'll say is I made a point in that video to say that none of this happens in a vacuum, and people acting like everything is happening in isolation and oversimplifying is exactly how we've ended up here as a country, because we're not critically thinking. I urge y'all to actually work on critically thinking. And if your version of that is to erase all of the context and all the background and look to find a way to pin it all on the Democrat, you're just perpetuating the problem here. Until next time, y'all.